Woman saw her son, who she buried 4 years ago, and decided to follow him. Losing the people you love is inevitable because the human life is just a breath compared to the grand scheme of things. Regardless of whether we believe in an afterlife or not, we cannot help but to wonder how the people we have loved and lost are doing and if they're all right. Grieving hurts, and it takes time to process what has happened. My brain would not let me think about what we had been through for a few days. The universe randomly distributes great and horrible. Then we deal with the results. Grief is an emotional reaction to loss that must be tempered over time to the logic of acceptance, or it can become destructive. The human soul has a remarkable ability to heal, but you must choose to allow that healing. Give it time and have a goal of acceptance. We have good and bad days, but when we fall into a hole, we can climb back out quickly and move on. Only our closest friends really see our scars, only the ones we share the worst days of our life with. Everyone else would see us as quite normal. A mother broke down in tears when she visited her son's grave on the anniversary of his death. She asked him for a sign from the beyond because she needed to know that everything was going to be all right extraordinarily. Later that day, she got what she asked for. Time is the only thing that helped me. I hate that time is passing, and yet the fact that every day took me further and further away from that truly nightmare time helped me gain perspective about the death of my adult son. I hate to sound clinical and aloof, but what you need here is perspective and information, not condolence. You can get over most of it. You can get to the point where it doesn't occupy your mind full time. And if you give yourself time and permission to get to that point, you'll get to that point. It can get better, but you have to permit it to happen because you can prevent it from getting better. Life will never again be exactly as they were before, but it can certainly be as good as before, just in a slightly different way. That's how life is after any change. It can't quite ever go back to the way it was, but it can be just fine after any change. If you permit yourself to get through this, to recover and recoup, to move on ahead, then you must very well find yourself helping others who experience this sort of thing. What better counselor for someone who has lost a child than a person who's lost a child? You can do this. It happens to people. It'll hurt like crazy for a while. It should be expected to. Life can be good afterwards, though. I don't know that parents ever get over the death of a child, young or grown. It's the reverse order. Our children are supposed to take care of us when we are dying. We're not supposed to have to bury our children. Jack passed away after being diagnosed with a brain tumor in April 2014. 45-year-old Marie Robinson from Waterlooville, England, lost her son Jack in April 2014. Her son was diagnosed with a brain tumor in January of that same year, and this news was devastating to his mother and his identical twin, Liam, as well as his 3 older sisters. He died at the age of 4, and that left a hole in the family. Marie always found the weeks leading up to her son's death anniversary especially challenging, and it was no different in 2017, which marked the 3rd year of Jack's passing. She visited his grave as she normally would, but this time she asked for a sign. His mother, Marie Robinson, asked him for a sign on his 3rd death anniversary. She told a Mirror Online early Saturday morning, "I got in the car and said out loud, 'Jack, please show Mommy a sign,' and thought I'll see him. After I finished work at 1:00 p.m., I left work and walked up to his resting place. I was overcome with emotion and I sat on the grass next to Jack." She continued saying, "With that, a little robin kept flying around me and trying to land on me, eventually landing on my foot. He didn't seem scared at all. He went and sat on a nearby headstone, so I got my phone out to film him being close to me, and he flew over and landed on my hand. He kept looking at me directly in my face, and at one point he landed on my shoulder and nibbled at me a couple of times." Incredibly, Robin showed up at Jack's grave that wouldn't leave Marie alone. She posted a video she took of the incident on Facebook with the caption, "Can't believe what just happened. Came to see my precious boy." Jack sat down on the ground next to him. And this happened. Yes, it brought tears to my eyes, taking it as a sign from Jack. The robin didn't seem the least bit afraid and went so far as to land on Marie's hand. In the spiritual community, robins are taken as a symbol which signifies that a person's loved ones are still there. It's also coincidental that the family's last name is Robinson. Whether it has anything to do with the appearance of this particular bird cannot be known for sure. Jack had received a surprise visit from his favorite singer, Gary Barlow, before he passed away. A website named the Spiritual Center says that this bird is a visitor and as such should be appreciated as a welcome visitor. Bringing gifts, it is for you to interpret the gifts it brings. Someone recently passed may be showing you that you are being watched, maybe just letting you know that they still love you. Jack had made headlines before he was diagnosed in 2014 when he got a visit from Gary Barlow, who was his favorite singer. He also received a video from the one and only Matt Smith, an actor who played in Doctor Who. When he passed away on April 1, 2018, the family decided to give him an incredible Star Wars-themed funeral. Jack's body arrived in a Star Wars-inspired coffin on a white carriage drawn by horses surrounded by stormtroopers. The carriage was covered in flowers, floral tributes, and wreaths in the shape of a lightsaber, Yoda, and R2-D2. Marie made sure her son's funeral was extraordinary, just as he was. Marie said, "I had 10 weeks to think about the funeral, and I wanted to do something different and special for him. I wanted Jack's funeral to have a twist because he was so unique." Jack always had that cheeky grin on his face. Even when we were in the hospital and I was sleeping next to him, he would poke me in the back with a lightsaber, then very quickly hit me with a grin. In just 4.5 years, Jack achieved what many people spend a lifetime doing. He was only a little boy, but he brought people together from all over the world. Jack is missed dearly by his mother, his identical twin brother, and 3 older sisters. Without knowing the exact loss experienced by your child, it's hard to offer other advice. Certainly, the loss of a sibling or parent could cause a more severe sense of grief than the loss of a friend. There are counselors who specialize in helping children deal with bereavement, and this may be the course you should follow. I can say with certainty that all of us grieve in different ways, so you can only offer love and kindness. Listen if the child wants to talk, but don't force them to do so. Watch out for personality or behavioral changes, because some children can be so profoundly affected by loss that they may be unable to cope. A mother never recovers, and never trade any sympathy or advice with her at any stage, because you will fall short. Even God does not have the courage to face such a parent. Future is destroyed. Your youth is destroyed. You never lived the life you ought to live. She will be a bitter soul, but normal on the outside. All of this depends upon how you lost your child. How did you get closure? In our case, my daughter was not hurt or bruised on the outside, but had brain injuries on the inside. She passed out peacefully after 6 days. That's a different matter. Some die brutally, some cry out of a painful death, and some are abducted or murdered. In such cases, you never find a logical closure. You always curse your fate and you never recover. Somewhere, the bitterness still remains. It never goes. Always pray to whatever you believe that time may never show you the death of your child. The family never recovers. Grieving should not be or become an excuse or allowance for any change in expectation of behavior. Responsibility and acceptable behavior is part of loving life. The death of a loved one is not a reason to change that adult or child. If anger or depression make it impossible to maintain acceptable, relatively normal behavior and interaction, those are symptoms that require more help rather than more tolerance. The realization that life will never be the same is the first step. We aren't the same inside our thoughts, beliefs. Everything is different. It's important to find ways to connect with our child every day in some way. Whether it is saying good morning, taking time to remember something good about them, to weave them into conversations with friends or family, to be open to signs they send, or to find a purpose to our lives that involves their passions or what caused their loss, we will always feel and be aware of their absence, and waves of pain will come in and knock us down at times for the rest of our lives. There's no getting over such a traumatic loss, but it is possible to learn to function in a healthy way that honors yourself, life, your child. You can also learn to be present for yourself, your family and friends, and your job. Many people change careers, homes, locations, and that's okay. It is okay to be right where you are, mentally and otherwise.